The dining room looked like a catalog photo someone had staged to prove they were fine. Candles, linen napkins, a centerpiece that said we have taste the way a locked door says we have secrets. Calla sat at the head of the table like she'd earned a crown for showing up. Jade, her best friend, her echo, laughed too loudly at everything Calla said, the way people do when they want to stay invited. And Mia, my stepdaughter, sat across from me with the kind of calm kids wear right before they do something cruel on purpose. I'd been in this family for 3 years, long enough to know where the good glasses were, long enough to know which floorboard squeaked near the pantry, long enough to know that love, in this house, wasn't a feeling. It was a membership. Calla clinked her fork against her water glass like she was about to announce a donation. "We should do this more," she said. "As a family." Jade smiled. "I know, it's so grounding." Grounding. That's a word people use when they're floating above consequences. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I was halfway through my food when Mia pushed her plate forward like it offended her. Her eyes flicked to Calla first. Permission check. Then she grabbed a handful of something, mashed potatoes maybe, and launched it across the table. It hit my shirt and slid down like a slow insult. Mia stood up so fast her chair screeched. Her face went red, and she screamed with the raw confidence only a kid can have when they're sure an adult will protect them. "You will never be part of this family," Jade gasped, not because she was shocked, because she wanted to be seen reacting. Calla didn't move. She didn't even blink. I wiped my shirt with my napkin. Slow. Controlled. Like I was demonstrating a magic trick. Watch how a person stays calm while being erased. "Mia," I said, voice level, "you're going to apologize." Calla's head turned toward me, sharp and quick. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. It never did anymore. "She's my child, not yours. Don't correct her." Silence landed hard enough to crack something. Jade's mouth opened, then closed. She took a sip of wine like it was safer than speaking. In that moment, I understood something simple and ugly. This wasn't a tantrum. It was a rehearsal. They'd practiced this version of me, the one who sits there and takes it, so many times it felt normal. And the worst part? Calla expected me to argue, to beg, to raise my voice so she could call me unstable later. She wanted a scene with me in it, because a scene is evidence if you tell it right. So I didn't give her one. I just smiled, stood up, and quietly cleared my plate. I walked to the sink. I rinsed the dish. I set it in the drying rack like I was a guest helping after dinner. Calla watched me like she couldn't decide whether I was pathetic or dangerous. Mia's breathing slowed. Victory achieved. Jade relaxed into her chair again, satisfied the household hierarchy had been restored. I returned to the table, grabbed my phone, and checked the time. Still early. That's when the sarcasm in my head finally woke up and stretched. "Congratulations, Grant," it said. "You've been officially demoted from husband to furniture. At least, furniture doesn't get yelled at." Calla lifted her chin. "Don't be dramatic." I looked at her. Really looked. The neat hair, the perfect nails, the face that could cry on command if she needed an audience. "I'm not," I said. "I'm listening." Her eyes narrowed. "To what?" "To what you're actually saying." Jade shifted. "Okay, maybe everyone just needs to calm down." But Calla cut her off with a small hand motion, like Jade was a paid assistant who'd forgotten her place. I nodded once, like I'd received instructions. Then I picked up my keys and walked out of the dining room. Behind me, I heard Calla's chair scrape. I heard her say my name like it was a leash. I didn't turn around, because if you turn around, you're still negotiating. That night I didn't sleep much. Not because I was heartbroken, because my brain was quietly lining things up. Titles, auto payments, authorized users, who signed what, who depended on what. People think revenge starts with anger. Mine started with paperwork. The next morning, her private school tuition, credit card, and car insurance all disappeared, just like my patience. I didn't cancel anything in a dramatic burst. I changed what I was allowed to change. I removed what I was allowed to remove. I rerouted what was under my name, my responsibility, my risk, and then I went to work like it was any other day. At 10:17, my phone lit up. Calla, I let it ring. At 10:19, it rang again. At 10:22, Jade texted, "Calla said something's wrong. Can you call her?" At 10:24, another call. Calla again. Longer this time. Like she believed persistence was the same thing as power. I stared at the screen until it went quiet. Then a new notification appeared, an email from the school's billing office. Past due. Payment required to avoid enrollment hold. I exhaled once, slow, like I was cooling soup, because now it wouldn't be a dinner table fight. Now it would be daylight. And in daylight, people don't ask who was right. They ask who's paying. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Calla. It was a number I didn't recognize. And the message was only 6 words. We need to talk. Today, alone. I didn't reply to the message, not because I was scared, because urgency is a currency, and I wasn't paying retail. By noon, Calla had called 13 times. I counted. The kind of counting you do when you're no longer emotionally involved, just auditing. Jade tried twice, left one voicemail that sounded like a therapist trapped in a wine glass, and then the number I didn't recognize called again. I answered that one. Grant, a man said too quickly. It's Nolan. Of course it was. Nolan Pierce. Mid-40s. Real estate development. Permanent tan. Smile like a used car warranty. I'd met him twice. Both times in my own house. Both times while he'd shaken my hand a little too firmly, like he was testing grip strength for sport. Hey, I said. This about your sudden interest in my wife's credit situation? Silence. A breath. Then a laugh that didn't quite land. Look, man, I don't want this to get weird. That was funny, because it had already been weird. For months, I'd just finally noticed. I got a message, he continued, saying you and I should talk, face to face. About what? Another pause. You could hear the gears grinding. Men like Nolan aren't used to pauses. They fill space with confidence the way others fill it with facts. About misunderstandings. Sure, I said. Those usually involve pants. He cleared his throat. That's not fair. I didn't say it was. We agreed to meet at a place halfway between his office and my job. A coffee shop that used to be a bank still smelled faintly like dust and authority. Noon crowd, glass walls, nowhere to whisper. When I got there, Nolan was already inside, seated with his back to the window. Amateur move. People who think they're predators always forget mirrors. I ordered coffee. Black, no lid. Sat down across from him. Up close, he looked tired. Not guilty. Tired. Like juggling lies had started to feel heavy. Grant, he said again. I think Calla may have exaggerated some things. I think Calla's very precise, I replied. She just edits out consequences. He leaned forward. Whatever's going on between you two, it doesn't need to bleed into other areas. Other areas like whose kid screams at my table? I asked. Or whose tuition I'm covering? His jaw tightened. There it was. The flicker. He knew. Not all of it, but enough. I'm not trying to replace you, he said quickly. I laughed. Actually laughed. A short bark that made the barista glance over. No, I said. You're trying to skip the line. He bristled. You don't know what she's told me. Oh, I know exactly what she tells men, I said. You're not special. You're scheduled. That landed. I could tell by the way his fingers curled into his cup like it might float away. I didn't ask her to cut you off financially, he said. That was aggressive. Was it? I tilted my head, because from my side it felt like boundary enforcement. We sat there in the noise of grinders and low conversations. Nolan's knee bounced under the table. Mine didn't. Finally he said it. The thing he'd been circling. She said you wouldn't actually do anything. I smiled. Not wide, not friendly. The kind of smile you give when someone confirms your hypothesis. Then she really doesn't know me, I said. I stood up, left a 5 on the table, and walked out before he could say anything else. Behind me, I heard his chair scrape. He followed me outside, voice low and urgent. Grant, listen. Calla's under a lot of stress. The school, the accounts, she's spiraling. Good, I said. Spirals reveal structure. He grabbed my arm. Not hard, not threatening. Just enough to be a mistake. I looked down at his hand, then back up at his face. Don't, I said quietly. He let go, immediately. We stood there on the sidewalk, traffic rushing past like none of this mattered. Nolan swallowed. She thinks you're bluffing, he said. She thinks you'll fold. I leaned in just close enough that he could smell the coffee on my breath. Tell her, I said, that I already did fold. His eyes narrowed. Fold what? The version of me she was betting on. I stepped back, turned, and walked away. My phone buzzed before I reached my car. A single text from Calla, sent 3 minutes earlier. If this is about control, you're losing. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Then I put the phone in my pocket and started the engine. Because control isn't loud. It's procedural. And by the time Calla realized that, the damage wouldn't be reversible. Behind me, Nolan stood on the sidewalk, staring at his hands like they'd just betrayed him. He didn't know it yet, but he was already late to the wrong meeting. By the time I got back to my desk, the office had that soft, end-of-day hum, keyboards, printers, people pretending they weren't watching the clock. I slid into my chair like nothing had happened. That's the trick. You don't look like a man whose life just split into compartments. At 3:42 p.m., my phone vibrated again. Calla this time. I answered. "Are you done?" She snapped, skipping hello like it was an expense she'd cut. "Depends," I said. "Are you done lying or just warming up?" She laughed, sharp, defensive. "This is petty, Grant. You're punishing a child." "No," I said. "I'm refusing to sponsor disrespect." "You don't get to decide." "I already did." Silence stretched. I could hear traffic on her end. She was driving, probably pacing her words the way she paced rooms when she wanted control back. "You think you're being strong," she said finally. "But you're just proving what I told Nolan." There it was. No denial, no apology. Just confirmation wrapped in accusation. "And what was that?" I asked. "That when things get hard, you disappear." I leaned back in my chair and watched the reflection of my screen in the dark window. My own face stared back. Calm, tired, focused. Not disappearing, narrowing. "You told him I disappear," I said slowly. "Or you told him I'm predictable?" She didn't answer right away. "Grant," she said, softer now. "Let's not do this in public. Come home tonight. We'll talk. Like adults." Adults. Another word people use when they want forgiveness without accountability. "I won't be home," I said. "Where are you going?" I smiled. She couldn't see it, but I felt it settle in my face like a decision. "I'm already there." I hung up before she could ask what that meant. At 6:10 p.m., I was standing in a parking structure 3 blocks from Nolan's condo. Concrete levels, flickering lights, the kind of place where footsteps echo longer than they should. I wasn't hiding, I was waiting. Nolan arrived at 6:23, same car I'd seen before, same confident walk, until he noticed me leaning against the pillar by his spot. He slowed, calculated, then forced a smile. "Jesus," he said. "You stalking me now?" "No," I replied. "I'm intercepting." He glanced around. Empty level. Bad acoustics. Worse timing. "You can't be here," he said. "I can," I said. "I am." He unlocked his car, hands shaking just enough to notice. "This is harassment, Grant." I stepped closer. Not touching, not threatening, just close enough that he had to decide whether to move back or stand his ground. "You grabbed my arm earlier," I said. "This is me returning the favor, minus the hand." He swallowed. "What do you want?" "Clarity." "About what?" "About how much of your life you're willing to lose for a woman who already picked someone else to blame." That landed. He looked away, then back at me. His jaw tightened. "She said you'd implode," he muttered. "That you'd make a scene." "I don't do scenes," I said. "I do schedules." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, not to record, not to threaten, just to show him something. A photo, his car, same spot, taken 10 minutes earlier. "You ever read your building's HOA bylaws?" I asked. "They're very specific about commercial activity in private garages." He frowned. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about your side hustle," I said calmly. "The one you run out of your unit. The one your neighbors don't know about." Color drained from his face. "I'm not reporting you," I continued. "I don't need to. I just need you to understand something." I stepped back, giving him space he hadn't earned. "You're done," I said. "With her. With me. With pretending this ends cleanly." He laughed then, nervous, hollow. "You think you've won?" "No," I said. "I think you're about to realize how expensive convenience is." I turned and walked toward the stairs. Behind me, Nolan called out, voice cracking just a little. "She won't forgive you." I didn't turn around. I'm not asking her to. By the time I reached my car, my phone buzzed again. One message, from a number I knew by heart. "If you don't come home tonight, don't bother coming back." I sat there with the engine off, the garage humming around me like a held breath. Then I typed 4 words. Then we're aligned. And pressed send. I didn't go home. That's important. Because later, Calla would tell people I stormed out, that I abandoned the family, that I chose my pride over stability. Stories need villains, and she was very good at casting. The truth was quieter. I checked into a hotel 5 miles away. Not dramatic, not symbolic, just close enough to be inconvenient if someone wanted to confront me in person. No, I asked for a room facing the street. Old habit. I'd like to see what's coming. At 7:58 p.m., my phone buzzed again. A photo this time. Mia, sitting on her bed, arms crossed, eyes red. Caption underneath. She doesn't understand why you're doing this. I stared at it longer than I should have. That was the first time guilt tried to sneak in wearing a child's face. Calla knew exactly when to deploy it, like a lawyer pulling out an old exhibit they'd saved for last. I didn't respond. At 8:11, another message. Nolan says you threatened him. Interesting. He'd upgraded intercepting to threatening. Inflation happens fast when people get scared. At 8:13, if this escalates, I will protect myself. There it was, the line in the sand she thought she was drawing. I set the phone down, turned on the TV without sound, and sat on the edge of the bed fully dressed. The room smelled like detergent and recycled air. Temporary, neutral, safe. At 8:47, there was a knock. Not loud, not polite. The kind of knock that assumes compliance. I didn't move right away. Counted to 5. Then stood, checked the peephole. Calla. Alone. Hair pulled back. No makeup. Eyes sharp with adrenaline and something close to panic. She'd driven straight here. Probably faster than she should have. Probably rehearsed what she'd say in the elevator mirror. I opened the door but didn't step aside. What do you want? I asked. She pushed past me anyway. Of course she did. The room wasn't big enough for her entitlement, but she tried. You can't do this, she said, turning on me. You're destabilizing everything. I booked 1 room, I replied. You're the one who followed me. Her eyes flicked to the bed. The TV, the single chair. She scoffed. So this is it? You playing martyr in a hotel? No, I said. I'm playing accountant. She laughed, but it cracked. You think you're being clever. Nolan told me you cornered him. I spoke to him, I corrected. He touched me first. That's not how he said it. Of course not. She stepped closer. Too close. The air between us tightened. You don't get to rewrite our life because you felt disrespected, she said. I looked at her. Really looked this time. The woman who'd once cried because I forgot to buy the right kind of milk. The woman who now thought humiliation was a parenting strategy. I didn't rewrite anything, I said. I just stopped subsidizing it. Her jaw clenched. You're hurting Mia. No, I said quietly. You taught her it was okay to hurt me. That landed. Harder than anything else I'd said. For a second, just a second, I saw fear flicker. Not for me, for herself, for the story slipping. She straightened, reset. This isn't over. I know, I said. That's the problem. She moved toward the door, then stopped, hand on the handle. You think you're in control, she said without turning around. But you've always needed me more than I needed you. I smiled. Then you should have been nicer to your sponsor. She left without another word. The door clicked shut. Final. Clean. At 9:22, my phone buzzed again. Not Calla, not Nolan. An email from the private school. Enrollment status. Suspended pending payment. I forwarded it. One address only. Then I turned off the lights and lay back on the bed, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. Because the thing about leverage is, it doesn't shout. It waits. And tomorrow, Calla would wake up to a world that suddenly required her to explain herself to people who didn't care about her feelings. People who cared about balances, and policies, and signatures. My phone buzzed once more. A new message, unknown number. You don't know who you're messing with. I stared at the words, then set the phone face down. Because whoever sent that message was already behind. And they just proved it. The message stayed on my phone all night. I didn't reply. I didn't block it. I let it sit there like a loose wire you don't touch until you're ready to see sparks. Morning came gray and efficient. Hotel coffee tasted like cardboard and regret, which felt appropriate. I showered, shaved, put on the same calm face I wore to boardrooms and budget meetings. Nothing about me looked like a man at war. That's always the mistake people make. They look for rage. At 8:06 a.m., Calla called again. I declined. At 8:09, a voicemail. I didn't listen. At 8:12, an email, from her work account this time. Subject line, urgent, all caps. Like urgency could reverse math. I forwarded it to my personal folder and locked my phone. By 9:30, the ripple started. First, a call from the school's finance office. Polite, professional. The kind of voice that doesn't care about tears. "Mr. Hale," the woman said, "we've been unable to reach Mrs. Hale. We need confirmation on payment today to avoid further action." "I'm no longer the guarantor," I said. "That change was processed yesterday." A pause. Keys clicking. "I see that," she said. "Thank you for clarifying." Click. At 10:02, Jade texted, "Calla is freaking out. This has gone too far." I typed back one sentence. Too far would have been yelling back. No response. At 10:18, the unknown number called. I answered this time. "Grant," a woman said. Calm. Controlled. Older than Calla. Used to being obeyed. "This is Marlene." I closed my eyes. Of course it was. Marlene Pierce, Nolan's wife, philanthropy boards, tennis club, the kind of woman whose name opened doors quietly. "I was hoping you'd reach out," I said. Silence. Then, "I don't appreciate my husband being threatened." "I don't appreciate him sleeping with my wife," I replied. "So I guess we're both disappointed." Her breath sharpened. "You're making accusations." "I'm making observations." Another pause, longer this time. "You've caused complications," she said, "at the school, at home." "Funny," I said. "Those complications existed before I noticed them." Her tone cooled. "What do you want?" There it was, the real question. "I want distance," I said, "between your husband and my life." "And if we don't comply?" I leaned back against the desk, watching a group of coworkers laugh near the printer. Normal lives, normal mornings. "Then things stay inconvenient," I said. "For everyone involved." She exhaled slowly. A woman calculating exits. "We'll talk again," she said. "We won't," I replied, and hung up. At noon, I drove past Nolan's condo. Not to confront him, to observe. His car was gone, garage door open, two men loading boxes into a rental van. Fast, sloppy. The kind of move you make when you're not sure how much time you have. Good. At 1:37 p.m., Calla finally broke protocol and showed up at my office. She didn't yell, she didn't cry. She stood at the reception desk with her back straight and her voice low, like she was afraid sound might shatter what little control she had left. "I need to see my husband," she said. My assistant looked at me through the glass wall, question in her eyes. I stood, smoothed my jacket, walked out. 5 minutes, I said. Conference room. Calla followed me like she owned the floor. Old habits end loudly. The door closed behind us. She rounded on me immediately. "What are you doing?" "Timing," I said. "You're humiliating me," she hissed. I met her eyes. Didn't blink. "You taught me how." She laughed then. Too loud, too sharp. "You think this ends with you on top?" "No," I said. "I think it ends with you exposed." Her face hardened. "You're not as smart as you think." I tilted my head. "Neither are you." She stepped closer, lowered her voice. "Nolan is scared." I smiled. That one stuck. "Good," I said. "Fear clarifies priorities." She stared at me, searching for something familiar, something she could still control. She didn't find it. "This isn't over," she said again. I nodded. "Correct." Then I opened the door. "Your 5 minutes are up." She left without another word. The hallway watched her go. At 4:55 p.m., my phone buzzed. A photo. Nolan's car. Tires slashed. No message. No number. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I smiled. Because I hadn't touched his car, which meant someone else had. And that meant the story was no longer under my control alone. It was moving. Fast. I didn't touch the tires. That mattered. Because once damage starts appearing that you didn't authorize, the board shifts. Revenge stops being a straight line and turns into traffic, everyone moving fast, no one admitting who cut whom off. At 5:41 p.m., Nolan called. Not texted, not through someone else. He called like a man who had run out of buffers. "Did you do this?" he demanded, voice tight. "No," I said honestly. Silence, then breathing. Heavy, uneven. "She's losing it," he said. "Marlene, she thinks this is going to blow back on us." "It already has," I replied. "You just didn't feel it yet." "You're enjoying this," he snapped. No, I said. I'm documenting it. He cursed under his breath. This is harassment, property damage. I can go to the police. You can, I agreed. But then you'll have to explain why you were at my house on Tuesday nights when your wife thought you were at the gym. That stopped him. Listen, he said, softer now. Calla's telling people you're unstable. I laughed, quiet. Of course she is. That's page 1. You're cornering her, he said. And when she feels cornered, she burns everything. I know, I said. That's why I moved first. At 6:10, I was back in my car, parked across from the house. Not hiding, just watching. Calla's car sat in the driveway like nothing had changed. Lights on inside, curtains half drawn, the stage set for an audience she hadn't invited yet. At 6:27, Marlene arrived. She didn't knock. She rang the bell once, sharp and precise. The kind of ring that announces authority, not curiosity. I stayed where I was. From the car, I watched silhouettes move behind the glass. Calla pacing, Marlene standing still, Nolan arriving late, shoulders hunched, like a man who already knows he's going to lose something important. I didn't need audio. Body language is louder when you know the script. At 6:49, the front door opened. Nolan stormed out first. Phone to ear, head down. He didn't look around, didn't see me. That was fine. Marlene followed. Calm, controlled. She paused on the porch, took a breath, then walked to her car without looking back. Calla stayed inside. Lights flickered. A lamp went dark. Another turned on. Movement, then stillness. At 7:03, my phone buzzed. Calla, I answered. Come inside, she said. No greeting, no warmth. We need to talk, all of us. No, I said. She inhaled sharply. You don't get to dictate terms anymore. I do, I replied, because you invited witnesses. Silence, then quieter. You're ruining my life. I looked at the house, the one I'd paid for, the table where I'd been told I didn't belong. No, I said. I'm removing myself from the lie. I hung up. At 7:11, Nolan's car pulled out of the driveway. I followed, not aggressively, not close, just present. 2 cars moving through evening traffic like strangers who knew each other too well. He noticed me 3 blocks in, sped up, changed lanes, took a sharp right he didn't need. I followed, not because I wanted to scare him, because I wanted him to understand something simple. I wasn't chasing. I was escorting. He pulled into a strip mall lot, half empty, poorly lit, stopped hard, got out of the car like a man ready to fight or beg. Hard to tell which. I parked 10 spaces away, got out, hands visible, no rush. This ends tonight, he said. You hear me? I stopped 5 feet away. Enough space to breathe, enough to leave. It does, I said. Just not how you think. You're unhinged, he spat. I smiled. You slept with a married woman in her husband's house and called it complicated. That stung. He lunged forward, not at me, past me, toward my car. I didn't grab him. I didn't block him. I spoke. Your wife already knows about the Tuesdays, I said, and the weekends you said were conferences. He froze. I stepped closer. Still no contact. And she knows why your car was parked 2 blocks away last winter, I added, the night it snowed. His shoulders dropped, not defeated, exposed. You won't survive this, he whispered. I leaned in just enough that my voice didn't carry. I already did, I said. You're just catching up. I stepped back, gave him space again, because fear works better when it has room. I got back in my car and drove away. Behind me, Nolan stood alone in the lot, hands on his knees, breathing like a man who finally understood the cost of convenience. At 8:02, my phone buzzed one last time, a message from Calla. You've crossed a line. I didn't reply, because the line she meant was the one where I stopped protecting her from consequences. And once that line is crossed, there's no going back. By the next morning, the city felt different. Same streets, same traffic, but the air had that thin, electric quality it gets right before a storm breaks, when everyone senses something's coming, but no one agrees on what. I woke to 6 missed calls and 1 voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. I listened to it while brushing my teeth. Grant, this is Trevor Bell. We need to talk. Today. Trevor Bell, Calla's clinic administrator. Not HR, not legal, operations. The guy who fixed problems before they turned into headlines. Interesting. I called him back. We're already talking, I said. A pause. Papers shuffling. the sound of a man who thought he was calling to apply pressure and realized too late the pressure had shifted. There are concerns, Trevor said carefully, about personal matters interfering with the clinic. Whose personal matters? I asked. Another pause. Longer. Calla's. I smiled. Then you should probably be talking to her, I said. We did, he replied. She suggested we reach out to you. Of course she did. When control slips, Calla always tries to reroute authority. And what did she tell you? I asked. That you're acting irrationally. I laughed. Trevor flinched on the other end of the line. Trevor, I said, I handle logistics for a living. Irrational people don't last long in my line of work. Ask anyone who's audited me. Silence. Then, there are investors involved. I know, I said. I've met most of them. That wasn't a bluff. I'd shaken hands, signed documents, read footnotes while Calla smiled for cameras. Trevor cleared his throat. We'd like to avoid disruption. So would I said. That's why I stopped funding it quietly instead of making a speech. Another silence. You could hear him doing math in his head. We're having an emergency meeting this afternoon, he said. Your name came up. I hope you spelled it right, I replied. I hung up and sat on the edge of the bed, phone resting in my palm. That was the moment it stopped being domestic. Now it was institutional. At 11:43 a.m., Calla texted me. You're dragging my work into this now? I typed back slowly. You dragged my life into your work months ago. No response. At noon, I drove past the clinic, glass building, clean lines, new sign, Calla's name embossed like permanence, people coming and going with coffees and folders, unaware they were walking through a pressure chamber. Across the street, Nolan's car sat in a guest spot. Of course it did. I parked 2 blocks down and walked the rest of the way. Not to go inside, to wait. Nolan came out first. Head down, phone glued to his ear. He looked smaller in daylight. Men like him always do when there's nowhere to hide. Calla followed a minute later. She stopped just outside the doors, said something sharp. He gestured helplessly. She turned away from him like he was an inconvenience she'd already categorized. That hurt him. I could tell. Good. I didn't approach. I didn't wave. I let them notice me on their own. Nolan did first. His head snapped up, eyes locked on mine. Panic flashed, then anger, then something like resignation. Calla turned slowly. When she saw me, her face didn't register shock. It registered calculation. She crossed the sidewalk toward me, heels clicking like punctuation marks. What are you doing here? She demanded. Watching, I said. It's educational. You're trying to intimidate us. No, I replied. If I were trying to intimidate you, you'd already feel it. Or no, Nolan stepped forward. This is harassment. I looked at him. You followed me out of my marriage. That shut him up. Calla's voice dropped. We can still fix this. That almost made me laugh. Fix implies mutual damage, I said. This is imbalance. Her eyes narrowed. You think you've won? I think you underestimated how boring I can be, I said. And boring men are dangerous. She leaned in, lowering her voice so passers-by wouldn't hear. You're not walking away clean from this, she said. I nodded. Neither are you. She straightened, forced a smile for a woman passing by, then turned back to Nolan. Get in the car, she snapped. He hesitated. That hesitation was everything. She noticed it too. Her jaw tightened. Now. He moved, obedient again, but slower this time. As they drove away, my phone buzzed. An email notification from Trevor Bell. Subject: Special meeting, 4 p.m. Attendance required. I stared at the screen, then looked back at the clinic doors. The thing about revenge is people expect explosions. They don't expect calendars. And they definitely don't expect the quiet moment when everyone realizes the meeting they thought was procedural is actually a reckoning. I turned, walked back to my car, and checked the time. 3 hours to prepare. Plenty. The meeting room smelled like lemon wipes and nervous energy. Glass walls, long table, 8 chairs. Only 4 occupied when I walked in. Trevor Bell sat at the far end, spine straight, hands folded like he was about to confess to something he hadn't technically done. To his right, Calla, perfect posture, neutral face, the public version of herself polished to a shine. To her left, Nolan, who looked like he'd aged 5 years since yesterday. And then there was me. I took the chair opposite Calla. Not beside, not diagonal, across. Trevor cleared his throat. Thank you for coming on short notice. No problem, I said. Calendars exist for a reason. Calla shot me a look. Sharp, Warning. I smiled back, small and polite. This meeting is about recent disruptions, Trevor continued. Financial, reputational, domestic, Calla cut in. Let's call it what it is. I leaned back. Domestic issues usually stay at home. You brought yours to work. Nolan shifted. His knee bounced under the table. He hadn't looked at me yet. That told me everything. Trevor raised a hand. Please, the concern is exposure. Exposure to what? I asked. Silence. That's when I noticed the folder in front of Trevor. Plain, white, too thick for meeting notes. Trevor, I said, before we start guessing, maybe you should open that. He hesitated. Just a second too long? Calla turned toward him. What is that? Trevor swallowed, opened the folder. I recognized the documents immediately, not because I'd seen them before, but because I'd helped structure them years ago, back when Calla's clinic was still an idea and not a building with her name on it. Partnership agreements, guarantor clauses, contingent funding schedules. Trevor read aloud, voice tightening as he went. According to this, Mr. Hale isn't just a spouse. He's listed as a conditional backer, a risk offset. Calla frowned. That's not... And, Trevor continued, flipping a page, there's a clause here that triggers review in the event of reputational conflict involving senior staff. Nolan finally looked at me. I met his eyes. That clause, I said calmly, exists so investors don't wake up one morning funding a scandal they didn't sign up for. Calla's face went pale. Not white, not shocked. Calculating pale. The kind that comes when someone realizes they skipped a footnote that mattered. You wouldn't, she said. I already did, I replied. Trevor looked up. Did what? Requested the review, I said. Formally, privately, yesterday morning. Nolan exhaled like he'd been punched without contact. This is retaliation, Calla snapped. Personal revenge. No, I said. It's risk management. Trevor flipped another page. His voice dropped. There are concerns noted here. Overlapping relationships. Undisclosed conflicts. Calla stood up. This is ridiculous. No, Trevor said quietly. This is documented. Nolan's phone buzzed on the table. He didn't touch it. He didn't have to. I already knew who it was. Marlene. Calla turned on him. You told her? He didn't answer. That was the twist. Not the affair, not the money. The fact that Nolan had tried to save himself. Trevor closed the folder. We need to pause operations pending clarification. Calla laughed once. Short, sharp. You can't do that. Trevor met her eyes. We can, and we are. She looked at me then, really looked, like she was seeing the outline of a person she'd never bothered to map. You planned this, she said. I nodded. After dinner, Nolan stood abruptly. I need air. No, Calla snapped. You sit down. He didn't. That was the second time today he didn't obey her. He walked out. The door clicked shut. Trevor gathered the papers. This meeting is adjourned. Calla didn't move, neither did I. When Trevor left, the room felt bigger, louder, empty in a way that pressed on the ears. You ruined everything, she said. I shrugged. You told me I wasn't part of the family. Her voice dropped. You think this makes you powerful? I leaned forward, elbows on the table. No, I said. It makes you honest. Finally. She stared at me, eyes glossy but dry. You're enjoying this. I smiled, not kind. I'm finishing it. Outside, through the glass, I saw Nolan pacing the hallway, phone to his ear, hands shaking. I stood. Where are you going? Calla asked. To remind him, I said, that fear has a memory. I walked out of the room. Nolan saw me and froze. And for the first time since this started, he ran. Nolan ran like a man who'd finally accepted that explanations were over. Down the hallway, past reception, through the glass doors, and into the parking structure behind the clinic. Late afternoon sun cut through the concrete slats in harsh angles. Every footstep echoed. Every echo carried panic. I didn't sprint, that's important. I followed at a pace that said I knew where this was going. Nolan, I called once. Not loud, not angry, just present. He didn't look back. He fumbled for his keys, dropped them, cursed, scooped them up with shaking hands. His car chirped open. He yanked the door and threw himself inside. I stopped 3 spaces away, watched. Because men like Nolan don't calm down once they're inside a car. They feel trapped. And trapped men make fast, stupid decisions. He started the engine, threw it into reverse, and then stopped, because my car was already behind him, not blocking, just close enough to register. He slammed the wheel, opened his door, and stepped out, chest heaving. "This is over," he said. "You got what you wanted." I shook my head. "No, I got what I needed." He looked around. Empty level. No cameras pointing our way. He knew that garage as well as I did. He'd chosen it because he thought it was safe. I stepped closer. Still no contact. "You ever notice," I said, "how men like you always think the worst thing that can happen is being caught?" He swallowed. "What do you want?" "I want you to remember this feeling," I said. "Every time you hear a car slow down behind you, every time your phone buzzes late, every time your wife asks a question and you don't know which answer costs less." He laughed, hysterical. "You think you scared me?" I reached into my jacket pocket. He flinched. I pulled out my phone and tossed it onto the hood of his car. It slid to a stop between us. "Play it," I said. He didn't move. "Play it," I repeated. He tapped the screen. Marlene's voice filled the garage, calm, precise, devastating. "I don't care what you think you felt. You embarrassed me. And now I get to decide what you keep." The recording ended. Nolan stared at the phone like it had teeth. "She told me everything," I said. "Not because I asked, because she needed someone to witness the moment you stopped being useful." His face collapsed inward. Not anger, not fear, loss. I stepped in close enough now that he had to tilt his head to look at me. "This part matters," I said quietly. "I didn't touch your car. I didn't touch you. I didn't threaten you." I reached past him and tapped the hood lightly. Once. "But I showed you how small your margin really is." He slid down against the driver's door, sitting hard on the concrete, hands covering his face. "I ruined my life," he whispered. I straightened. "No," I said. "You rented it, month to month. You just forgot the due date." I turned away. Behind me, he said my name. I didn't answer. I walked back toward the exit ramp as the sound of sirens drifted somewhere far off, unrelated, unimportant, ordinary. The world continuing the way it always does when something very personal ends. At the top of the ramp, my phone buzzed. One message, from Calla. "Where are you?" I stopped, looked out over the city, cars moving, people late for things that still mattered to them. I typed one sentence. "Out of your reach." Then I turned the phone off and walked away.